Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the Schmoedown Rundown. Introducing first, Frankie Stats Janisch. And their co-host, the man of controversy, Mr. Brian the Duke David. And finally, your host, Aaron Turner. Let's get ready to Schmoedown.
What's going on, Movie Trivia Schmoedown fans? It is episode number 22 of the Schmoedown Rundown. My name is Aaron. I am your host as always. Joining me today is the stat man. He is Frank Janisch. What's happening, man?
Hey, what's going on, guys? What a great week we've had.
Also here, a guy that refuses to believe me that Lego Batman is fantastic. It is Brian Davids. What's going on, man?
Aaron and Frank, I'm happy to be here once again on the Schmoedown Rundown. I keep mixing up the words run and one.
Also in this episode, I got to sit down with one of your favorite competitors, one of my favorite competitors, the Rookie of the Year, classy Clarke Wolfe. You will hear that a little bit later on in the show. And also, you will hear about the guest that we will have for next week as I leave the show for 1 week. So I've set you guys up with somebody that I think will do a fantastic job in my absence as I go check out the Showcase of the Immortals, also known as WrestleMania 33. So I will not be here next week, but I have somebody that is just as good and will do just a fine job. So stay tuned for that. And with all that out of the way, all that business, let's jump into the team recap this week. It was Team Schmoes making their return. Christian Harloff and Mark Ellis versus Team Top 10, John Roca and Matt Nost, both former team champions. Top 10 had won the first match by knockout to take the team titles from the Schmoes. Frank, why don't you tell me what happened in round one?
Well, round one started off with a bang from both teams, each getting 10 points. It was Matt Nost who was the best in round one. He answered 6 out of his 8 questions. Ellis and Harloff, they each answered 5 apiece. And it was Roca bringing up the rear. He only answered 4 out of 6. So thank goodness for Roca that Nost showed up in that first round. It was quite an exciting first round going back and forth. It was everything I think all of us thought this match would be. And the first round definitely set us up for quite a match.
There's one point I do want to make about round one, and that's the Ellis writing on the board, but then saying the wrong name out loud. I know it's not a big deal, but it's also a rule that you have to write down the name and pronounce the name that you wrote down. So if I were Team Top 10, I would have challenged that, and it may have been counted wrong. I don't know what the opinion of the panel is. Frank, what do you think? Should it have been counted wrong? Would you have challenged in that situation?
I think I would have challenged and put some pressure on the judges because Ken had come out and said, maybe not test the judge or mess with the judges. And even Harloff, I noticed, was a little miffed, I guess, about what are you doing? Just say what you wrote because it's the right answer. I thought it was I know Ellis was joking around and stuff, but that is the rule, like you said. And I think had it been anybody else, I question whether or not they would have accepted the answer. So it is interesting.
Well, Ellis is a co-founder, co-creator of the Movie Trivia Schmoedown. And look, if you want to compete in the Schmoedown, I don't think your best move is to challenge something that a co-founder, co-chairman, co-creator does. So as far as survival instincts, I can see why Top 10 would just let it go.
I'm not saying there was any foul play. It's just something I noticed. I thought it was noteworthy. Brian, give me your round one thoughts. What did you think?
Overall, this was a hotly contested round one, and we've seen a lot of close round ones lately. But the big takeaway, as far as I'm concerned, is something that I predicted would happen this week. Matt Nost got back on track, especially in round one. And in Top 10 is virtually unbeatable as long as Nost plays well. He doesn't have to play perfect for them to win, just as long as he plays well enough, Rocha can do the rest. Now, I have a specific issue, though, that I really want to point out as it's kind of popping up from week to week, and that has to do with the way some of these questions are written. In round one, the Bryce Dallas Howard, Ron Howard question really threw me. And at kind of first watch, first listen, I thought the 8th question was asking for Bryce Dallas Howard. What acclaimed director's daughter starred in the M. Night Shyamalan movies, The Village and Lady in the Water? And I realized that they read the categories first, but the wording can still throw you off since Bryce Dallas Howard technically is a director's daughter, just like Connie Britton was regarded as Coach's wife on Friday Night Lights. So Bryce Dallas Howard is also an acclaimed director's daughter, given her acting ability. So a simple rewording would have solved this. What acclaimed director has a daughter who starred in The Village, etc.? Or name the acclaimed director whose daughter starred in ... So I can't be the only one who was confused by this question. And I don't know about you guys, but the question, once it's asked, I'm not thinking about the category any longer. I'm only focusing on the question itself, not the brief category mentioned before.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I didn't have a problem with the question initially, but now that you've brought this up and I'm thinking about it, I could see where that would get muddy. Just switching some words around that would make it a lot cleaner. I see exactly what you're saying.
It didn't come up to me when I was watching the match, but then I saw in the Movie Trivia Schmoedown Facebook page, people were talking about it, and I go, yeah, that's a little awkward. But I mean, if you're really listening to it, what acclaimed director, and the category is directors. I mean, I think if you put
it's not saying that though. It's saying what acclaimed director's daughter. So
I know
daughter.
Right, I understand what you're saying, but if the category is director, I mean, right there, it's like they're looking for a director's name. So I know they say the question, and that can be confusing, but if you go back and think about, well, what's the category? That's also a hint of what kind of answer they're looking for. But I understand the confusion with some people if you're not going back and thinking about the name of the category.
When you're under the lights and you're pressed for time, I don't know that most people are going to go back and reference, oh, what category was it again? Me personally, I'm going to be focused on the question itself, and just the way that it reads, just the way that it sounds, made it sound like they were asking for Bryce Dallas Howard. And one word being added to that would have eliminated any confusion. So I just think that they need to proofread a little bit more and make sure to avoid this, because in the heat of the moment, the competitors don't have time to reread 3 times and clarify these things 3 times. So that's all I'm saying.
No, I agree with you. I agree with what you're saying. I also think I think the question made them think a little harder than maybe they need to, if that makes sense.
Commenters, what do you think about this question? Were you confused? Did it read properly to you? I've heard from a few people that also were confused, so it's probably a half and half thing. I bet it's kind of divided right down the middle. Some people were confused by it, the other half weren't. So let us know.
I wonder if there's a way that you could, at some point, if there's a question like that nobody understands, it's like, I don't understand the wording of that question. I wonder if they would just throw it out and then just stop, edit that out, and re-record with another question.
Is it fair to be charged a repeat request when the question is worded poorly? Again, I'm not throwing Skaliski under the bus, but sometimes a question could be worded for more clarity.
Right.
Is it fair that they're charged a repeat request in that case? Is that where the judge comes into play?
That's where the judge would have to come into play, because that's you're getting very gray there with that. I guess if it's different, let's say, of course this isn't a dig at Ken, but let's say that Ken is reading a question and he bumbles through it, that should not count as a repeat at all. But if you read the question and the question is just confusing and you need it repeated, I mean, it would still count, but I guess it would be a judge's discretion thing as well.
There was, I think in the Andreyko match, I think he said something to the effect, I didn't hear that first part. I forget who was asking the question. He goes, I didn't hear that first part. They didn't challenge him or charge him with a repeat. They just recited the question to him. So, I mean, it has kind of happened what you're describing. But also, if they're going to rephrase the question, the player should not be charged, that repeat, because it's the game makers that are redoing or fixing an error on their end.
Frank, do you think they are told, or do you think Skaliski is told to write each question with as few words as possible?
Oh, I have no idea on that. I'm not sure. I know that he gets, or that he said that he gets it from other trivia apps or books. So he may be using the word the wording from those sources. I'm not sure how much he actually writes the question with his own words. I know I want to say back in 2014, I think he wrote a lot of those on his own, maybe. But now that they need a lot more questions, I think I'm speculating sort of here that they take a lot of it from some other source, maybe word for word. I'm not. Maybe they switch something up, but they got to generate a lot of questions. So I'm sure it's a daunting task for him, and then whoever else is working with him.
Because they now put the questions on the screen, that's why I tend to believe that they now have a character limit because they don't want the screen to be covered with a super long question. So perhaps in condensing them, that's where some confusion has been created. Once you attempt to shorten a word for the sake of the presentation, you end up making it a bit more confusing on the competitors, such as this case, because again, this could have been a lot clearer by simply saying, name the director whose daughter starred in ...
Good
Yeah,
catch.
I mean that could certainly be a possibility with the space on the screen, and they got to figure out a way how to make a coherent question fit in so many characters.
Right.
I could see that being a possibility. Yeah.
Frank, tell us about what happened in round 2.
In round 2, the Schmoes decided to go first because somehow they were ranked ahead of top 10, whatever. So they spun first, got mixed bag, and then they decided to spin again, and they got mixed bag. So it was, and you know what? It actually worked out pretty well for them. They scored 11 points, just one shy of the maximum during their set of 6 questions. They went to multiple choice on the 4th question. It was that Western question where the answer was Shane. So they came out pretty good. When we've seen the mixed bag category come up, Elliot recently, and then Merle had mixed bag. It wasn't too kind to those guys. So the Schmoes definitely have had the best performance in mixed bag, and I don't think we'll see that performance top for quite a while, if ever. I mean, someone would have to get perfect. Top 10 went second. They spun Disney on their first spin, decided to stay with it. I was kind of surprised that they stuck with it and didn't know how well they knew Disney. They did pretty well. They got 9 points out of that. They missed one question in the third question, and that's where Schmoes actually capitalized by earning 1 point to give them 12 in the round. So Schmoes was up 22-19 exiting round 2, heading into the third.
Brian, what are your thoughts on round 2?
Well, hopefully Elliot Dewberry was watching this round because the Schmoes kind of gave a free lesson on how to maneuver the mixed bag category. It was a near perfect round with 11 points. Again, as you mentioned, they got their 1 multiple choice via what I would say was an educated guess, since Shane is highly relevant right now thanks to Logan. Obviously, Skaliski or whomever wrote this question was so inspired by the greatness of Logan that they submitted some Schmoedown questions that relate to Logan. So they even showed off their movie release date chops via 1986's Aliens, an answer that Christian apparently stole from Ellis. And I think it was the Nerdist IGN match. I think Nerdist asked for multiple choice to be repeated on a steal opportunity, and they were charged a repeat request, even though it was a steal opportunity, even though the multiple choice answers were spoken to IGN. And you and I both objected to that because they shouldn't be charged with a repeat request when it's a steal.
Right.
So I meant to bring this up several weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, but they have since done away with that as they no longer charge people a repeat request on steal opportunities. So I'm glad they eliminated that harsh rule, if you ask me. And so it happened in this round. They were not charged. Top 10, once again, proves that they will not go quietly into the night when they're down big. These guys are kind of the comeback kings. You think they're dead, you think they're buried, and they come back with a 9-point round of their own. Yeah, it wasn't as good as the Schmoes, but they kept themselves in it. And Matt Nost, once again, he played well enough to keep them in the match, and Roca could then put it away when he needed to.
Yeah, he was definitely a big part of that second round. Good to see Matt Nost finally come back from that unfortunate team championship match in the Spectacular. It's good to see him get back on track. Frank, what did you think? What are your overall thoughts of round 2?
Round 2 usually is where there's separation between teams or players. I thought with the mixed bag, Schmoes was in big trouble. Didn't come out that way with Disney. I just thought it was a really well-played match, and it just shows you the Schmoes in Team Top 10 are the 2 best teams in the league. I know Patriots have the title, but I don't subscribe to the fact that they're the best. They pretty much won that title on a guess. Yes, they've put themselves in that position to win it, and they did win on a guess. I still feel Top 10 and Schmoes are the 2 best teams, and round 2 showed you exactly why. They're smart about the game. They went to multiple choice when they had to. They figured things out. Both of these teammates work well together. They've known each other all a long time. And I think all of that coalesced into this second round and really showed you what the class of the team league is all about.
All right, let's jump into round 3. What happened there?
In round 3, a lot of crazy stuff happened in this round, guys. Top 10, they had to go first in this round as they were trailing 22-19. Rocha gets that Jim Morrison question with Val Kilmer. He gets it.
Can we talk about that for a second?
Sure.
I know Rocha is strong in biopics, but ultimately that was a 2-point question. Val Kilmer as Jim Morrison in The Doors. In the case of top 10, I think Matt Noe should always be answering your 2-pointers. I want Rocha answering that 3-pointer. He should have the weight of the responsibility for the big point questions on his shoulders, especially when in this case the 3-pointer was Star Wars related. So this move almost backfired to blow up in Top 10's face. It didn't at the end of the match, obviously, but Rocha quickly pounced on that biopic question because he knows it's a strength. And I just feel like it should always be a strategy of theirs to let Nose take the 2-pointer and always let Rocha get the 3-pointer since he's the stronger player. And the responsibility should be his with more points on the line, is my point.
You do make a lot of sense there. But like you also said, biopics is one of Rocha's biggest strong points. So I think it was just a natural in the moment kind of thing. It's like, biopics, you take it. Why wouldn't you? Because you never know. I mean, Matt Nose is pretty good at Westerns and stuff like that. He could have got that for the 3-point question. So you never really know what it's going to be. So you might as well go ahead and get the sure thing. You might as well, it's kind of like a rule in football. Like you always want to get the points that you can. So you might as well go ahead and grab 2 as opposed to not grabbing any. And I know it could have backfired on them, like you said, but you might as well get the sure 2 points.
Yeah, that stuff we have seen backfire on a couple teams. This one, I would normally be in agreement here. But what I'm going to say here is Nose was actually having a really nice game. Had he reverted back to his slump, I would have agreed that no matter what, Rocha should have been lined up for that 3-pointer. But I think at that point in the match, Rocha actually wasn't really Rocha as we know him. So, and once you get a category, I'm not gonna say it's a sure thing, but biopics is like you guys said is a strong point of his, and those are, you don't want to fidget with something that's kind of a lock for somebody. So I understand why Rocha went for it. Yeah, I mean, look, Star Wars. For that 3-pointer is kind of a kick in the gut. I'm kind of okay with Nost deferring to Rocha to take that 2-pointer just because of the way he was playing throughout that game. I think, his confidence was back. He was playing very well, kind of carried them through that first round. So, because when I was watching the match, I thought maybe Nost should also be taking that 2-pointer because you want your number one guy taking all the big points. I do agree with that for majority of the time, like Ricky and Elliot. Like we all know Elliot's gonna be up taking those 3-pointers. Yeah. That's a no-brainer.
Are you trying to say that Ricky is not a good player?
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, pretty much. But I know Rocha and Nost, they trust each other, that they know just as much as each other. But I mean, from a spectator's point of view, I can agree with that point like 99% of the time.
As soon as the 3-pointer category came up of Star Wars, I knew that Nost wasn't going to get the question right. And I already had the narrative in my head that these guys were going to be regretting taking biopics too soon for Rocha when they had a 3-point Star Wars question on deck. Like, it had this, not obviously it wouldn't be Bespin level controversy, but I saw the outcome in my head right there. Rocha was going to be kicking himself for taking biopics too soon when they needed him to answer that 3-pointer, given that it was Star Wars. So it didn't turn out that way, but big break, though, for top 10 as the match unfolded.
Let's keep in mind also that just because Rocha gets a Star Wars question, as history tells us, may not nail it. So let's just let's keep that in the back.
The Schmoes, they answer the 2-pointer for Harloff, and he got the coming of age. He's confused. He got that question right. And then
it was 22-21 Schmoes when they missed their 3-pointer for Star Wars. So they were down by 1 point going into the 5-pointer, and they pull out that miracle Green Berets answer to go up 26-22 over Schmoes. So top 10 with one of the pulls of the league, of the entire league, all 4 seasons with Green Berets. I mean, that seemed like as big a guess as any. Green Berets. That was unbelievable.
That was crazy, and it didn't even look like Roca was for sure. I think he probably figured
wasn't.
that's his best guess. Maybe that's it. And yeah, because when he answered, it wasn't. He was just kind of throwing up a Hail Mary. It seemed like, and man, it's unbelievable. You're right. It's one of the greatest pulls that we've ever seen in teams or singles. It was, that's it's a good thing he's 400 years old, I guess. I don't
I mean, yeah, Kenny even joked it helps for John to have been alive in the 50s and 60s. And how often do you see an opponent reach across the table and give their competitor or their opponent a fist bump like the chairman did?
Right.
So
Exactly.
even he was impressed. So I love seeing that moment right there where the other team is just like, wow, like I gotta stop this match and give you a congratulations, even though we're still in this thing.
And they certainly were in it because they had two prime opportunities to put this one away. Ellis got scores and soundtracks. Man, just could not. He just added Spider-Man 2, and it just wasn't the right answer. And then
it's
they
24,
still hit.
It's 24-26 at this point because they had the quick 2-pointer, Dazed and Confused. The boys paddled the freshman. Then the Spider-Man 2 miss, which is just, man, that is, it's not Bespin level, but that's going to haunt the Schmoes for a long time.
And then that 5-pointer was the Hitchcock question with the 2 out of 4, which ones, and they got halfway there. Unbelievable. Roca thought it was pretty much a gimme from what we could hear from him. This has to hurt more than that knockout because they had 2 opportunities right there at the end to seal the deal, and it just didn't happen for them. I mean, that's just when the camera panned over to the Schmoes just leaning back on their chairs. I mean, what more could the Schmoes have asked for in that kind of scenario? And miraculously, they just faltered.
Do you think that maybe even the category of Star Wars being off the table was maybe even an omen for the Schmoes? Because that would be a category they would both be very, very strong in.
Well, here's the thing. Top 10 said that the Schmoes took 2 of their numbers. So I don't know if 10 was one of their original numbers, but if it wasn't, the Schmoes pushed them in that direction then, which is kind of funny.
Did you guys know the answer to the Jimmy Stewart question? Could you name 2 out of the 4 Hitchcock films with Jimmy Stewart?
Unfortunately, no.
I think Roca only knew that because, once again, he was alive when they both came out.
Now, would you guys call this a classic match?
It was a high-scoring match, but I wouldn't say it was anything of super note for me personally.
Because, I mean, some people were screaming, oh, this is another instant classic between the Schmoes and top 10. And the reason I can't call it that is just because it ended with 2 incorrect questions, 2 incorrect answers.
Right.
It's hard for me to call something an instant classic when it ends in such a way. If it ended with a correct answer for the win, for the comeback win, yeah, maybe I would call it a classic in that case. But when it ends on 2 forced errors like this, it's hard for me to take this match up to the next level. It's certainly a good match.
To use a sports analogy, you would rather see a buzzer beater than 2 missed free throws.
Exactly.
It is a classic because of the history preceding this match, the knockout, and then for them to get all the way to the last question. It went to the last question, and it was completely out of Top 10's hands, and nothing about it. And they had to sit back and wait, and the Schmoes, I mean, I guess you could say a classic choke job, if that's being harsh, fine, but it's one of these matches where you would tell somebody, you're not going to believe how this ends. You're not going to believe it.
Great chapter. It's another good chapter, great chapter in a classic rivalry. That's how I'm going to phrase it.
Final score, top 10, 26, Schmoes 24. Schmoes fall for the second time in a row to top 10.
So where do we stand right now as far as team rankings? Where does this win place top 10, Frank, as far as rankings, contenders for the belt?
In my personal opinion, it puts them right at number 1, where they've been for me since Trek lost. And once Trek lost, I put top 10 number 1, Schmoes number 2, Trek 3. And I still think it stays the same, although you could make the argument Schmoes is below Trek.
I think it's got to be Trek because the Schmoes sound like they don't want to play for a while. So,
and that's a big part of it too. That's a good point. Yeah.
And let's go ahead and talk about that. In the post-match interview, it seemed like Ellis and Harloff doing the old, we're just going to see how the league fills out a little bit. We're just going to see what happens. We're not really going to jump back into team competition. We've heard this before, and we've seen them come back. So Brian, what do you make of this time?
Well, it's frustrating whenever they do this because we want to see them play. We've been fans of these guys for a long time, well before the Schmoedown. At the same time, I understand why they want to take a step back because they want to grow this league. Because when they play, they are just bringing in their existing audience. They're not bringing in a new audience or an outside audience. If you bring in a new competitor or even a existing competitor, you're bringing in their audience. So to grow the league, you want to have other people come in and play, whereas if they play, it's just kind of maintaining the status quo. So I get it. It's just they're too good. They're too good as players, and it's a big void not to have them competing. And that's why, I want them doing more double headers per month. That way, we can see these guys a bit more. Kill multiple birds with one stone on a Friday. Record 3 matches. I don't know. I just don't want to see them take another 3 months off. 6 weeks, fine. I can deal with that, but not 3 months.
Yeah, it's disappointing to hear that they're going to take a break. I can manage if they want to take a break from singles. That's fine. I understand they got a lot going on trying to grow the league. Hear that it might be a while before we hear them or see them again, rather, in the Schmoedown. Kind of sucks because I enjoy watching them compete and play because it's so different from when we see them behind the desk, obviously. It's nice to see them display their knowledge, the guys who created this stuff.
By the way, during the Spider-Man 2 question, or the Spider-Man question, it seemed like Christian knew the answer and that Ellis got it wrong. But in the post-interview, Christian clarified, I also thought it was Spider-Man 2. So they would have gotten it wrong either way. So they can't play that card. But I was amused by Roca holding the horror thriller magnet. I was amused by Nost holding a picture of their previous win against SK during the match, taping it to the desk. And as someone who used to do a mispronunciation segment on another show, I really enjoyed Emma correcting the pronunciation for Akira, even though as Americans we're not expected to imitate the Japanese accent. So I do appreciate, though, that she was correcting these guys. So credit to Emma.
Snuck it in, man. He snuck it in there.
Let's move on. Let's go to the singles recap this week. It was teammates going up against each other, teammates, friends, colleagues, best pals, one-on-one. It was the classy one, Clarke Wolfe versus Mark Yodi Riley, with the winner getting a shot at the coveted Movie Trivia Schmoedown Championship, which is currently held by a guy we just got done talking about, the outlaw, John Roca. So, Brian, why don't you take us through round 1?
First off, did you guys find value in Roca coming out before this match and kind of taking the spotlight from Riley and Clarke? Was this something that you guys wanted to see, or did you appreciate it?
It's a classic wrestling move that kind of happens sometimes. The champion or the number one contender will come out and sit on commentary and watch the match, which I thought was going to happen, but he ended up just coming out saying something and going backstage. It didn't really do much for me. Had they kept a camera on him the whole time, that would have been different. Or if they cut to him every once in a while, that would have been fun. But I liked his T-shirt. That's about all I got.
Yeah, I think it's relevant just because of what we'll see in the post-interview. I think this was one of many things that affected Mark Riley's reaction in the post-interview. But I just want to say Roca is looking good these days. I think he's lost a little bit of weight. The champ is feeling good and looking good, it sounds like. It seems like.
Saw some veins popping in the arms. Saw it.
And just we don't talk about this stuff usually, but all the pre-match minutia, I love that they put on their bout cards, whatever you want to call them. The strengths are known for hating Roca. That was Clarke Riley's strengths, known for hating Roca. And then Ken joked, not losing hair is another one of Riley's strengths. But round 1, again, we've been spoiled lately with all these hotly contested round 1s. We ended with another tie at 6-6. Unfortunately, it should have been 7-6 Clarke as she misunderstood the 6th question. And this goes back to my point in regards to Ron Howard, the Bryce Dallas Howard question. Question 6 was, name one of the 2 male leads in 2015's Ex Machina. Well, when you say male leads, do you mean male lead actor? Do you mean male lead character? It can go either way. So I understand why Clarke misinterpreted the question. So, I just have to have some of these questions written with a bit more clarity. If a competitor is confused, I want them to be able to speak up and not fear that they're going to risk a repeat. So Clarke probably should not have rushed that question, she probably should have stuck her hand up and said, can I get some clarity? Have the judge review it. Because this turned out to be a big turning point in the match, even though it was just question 6 of round 1.
That question, I thought for sure, I was like, man, she should be up 7-6, spinning first or deferring, whatever she wants to do. But she also did say, I thought it was looking for the character name, so I guessed Ryan. It sounded like she was saying she was going to guess either way.
Well, she thought she thought they were asking for the character names, and she would have been wrong. But had she known they were asking for the actors, there's no doubt she would have gotten it right. So I just need clarity to avoid a confused competitor who, under the lights, doesn't have the wherewithal that we have watching at home. So I know that we probably would have realized they were asking for actors, but we can't assume that for everyone, especially when 2 male leads can mean both things. It does not imply just actors. It does not imply just characters.
It goes back to what we talked about earlier. That would be a time to use a challenge or a time for a ref to come in. Just go, hey, I need some clarification on this question. Are you asking for the actors? Are you asking for Oscar Isaac?
In this case, when Clarke got it wrong, I want to see the judge jump in there and say, based on the way the question was written, we're not going to take that point away from Clarke, because the judge should have evaluated the question and said, well, I can see why she'd be confused by it. Let's give her another question, or let's give her the point because it was a confusing question. I feel like a judge should have jumped in there automatically once Clarke said she thought it was the other way. That should have signaled the judge to come in automatically when there was confusion.
Frank?
It's hard for me to say either way because I initially did think, the answer was Oscar Isaac. So I can try and see the other way, of course, and I do. But my point earlier was that had she known or had she realized the question was asking for an actor's name, it still seemed like in her response that she also would have guessed at that. I can't remember her exact wording, but it seemed to me like it was going to be a guess either way. That's what I got from her wording after I went back and watched it for a second time. So that was only my point.
I promise you, she would have known one of the actors. Her guess only pertained to her thinking it was a character name they were asking. But Aaron, the scenario that I just played out, do you think that a judge, seeing that Clarke was confused by the way the question was worded, do you think a judge should have popped in right away to say, let's fix this, let's give her another question, or let's just give her the point?
It's just another gray area. At what point is it a challenge? At what point do you throw okay, well, we're just going to throw this question out and we'll just go with another one? I don't know, because it's easy, like you said, it's easy for us on this side to say, oh, well, I understand the question, and they may not understand it all because they don't have a monitor in front of them. They can't read the question in front of them to kind of get that description. Once again, it may even go back to the wording of the question as well. Just a couple more words in there to clarify that question.
Absolutely.
It could have been a turning point in the match and ended up more or less not being at the time. So it's a tough call. It's tough. I don't want to be in that situation. We do need to start utilizing that third judge, I think.
Yeah, I think the judge should have popped in. When she said I was confused by the way the question was written, the judge should have reviewed the question to see if she had a point there. And I think if they reviewed it, they would have said, yeah, lead can be a lead character or it can be a lead actor. So let's give her the point or let's give her another question. Clarke always has these frustrating moments in her big matches, and I hate that she always seems to lose by the slimmest of margins for strange things like this. We saw this with the Guardians of the Galaxy question. Name all 5 Guardians of the Galaxy characters, which that's just too many answers to have to give, and they haven't really done it since. Now it's more name 2 of the 4, or 1 out of the 2, or 1 of the 7 in the case of the Oscar nominees, the Best Picture nominees last year. I feel for Clarke in these moments, and I just wish the judge would come in this case. Well, in round 2, we saw the debut of a category that I've never seen in round 2. Yodi spun movie taglines. And like a man, like a superhero, he took it. He didn't run from it. He basically said, why not? And he did okay. He got 4 out of 8 points. And it was kind of a difficult category, to be honest. I don't know how well I would have done when it came to escape or die frying, vampires, not interviews. I mean, it seems like it's a category that is easier than it really is. So time will tell how people deal with that category. But based on this match, I think people are going to avoid it. So, Frank, do you see movie taglines being another category like movie quotes or movie release dates that people avoid?
Yeah, I think I've said it before on the show. I was like, mixed bag taglines, movie release dates are like the holy evil trinity of categories to get in round 2 or anywhere in the match. I was surprised he stuck with taglines because in the past when people have gotten taglines, I think mostly in round 1, a few times in the third round, it hasn't been that great of a question because some of them are kind of really random. Just random words like that Terminator one. That's Terminator. Okay, the thing that never got.
I have no clue about that.
That one I was like, whoa. Props to Riley for getting 4 points out of there. It was pretty impressive.
Can one of you guys name me off the top of your head a movie tagline? I'll wait.
Hell no. You know what? That's the thing. I'm like, where did you get these taglines from? Are you looking at movie posters? Are you looking at press releases? I have no idea.
You got a movie tagline you can name off the top of your head?
The only one that comes to mind is because it's a recent film. It's a bad film from what I'm hearing. And the tagline was so bad that I happen to remember it now. And that is Chip Happens.
Oh, man.
That is bad.
Is that from Power Rangers or?
It could be, but no, it's from Chips, of course, with Dax Shepard, Michael Pena. But in the case of, do I want movie quotes? Do I want movie release dates? Do I want movie taglines? I'll take movie taglines just because you can kind of form a better educated guess when you get a sentence or two as to what movie it is. I think as far as throwing out guesses, I think it's the easiest category if you have no clue to form an educated guess from when it comes to the trinity of evil categories, as Frank said.
Well, the good thing about a category like movie taglines, it's going to be difficult for just about everybody, I think. So it's a category you can take a risk on. It's one of those scenarios where I think you're better served just shooting for a 2-point answer and forgetting about multiple choice, because once you do that, you have 4 choices. One of them is the right answer. If you get one wrong, you've already increased the odds of the person getting the answer. So in a difficult one like that, even movie release dates, just take a shot. Just take a shot, because unless you're playing Scott Mance or somebody on movie release dates, it's going to be really difficult to knock that down. So that would be one of those cases where that would be my strategy, to just knock out a 2.
Yeah, Clarke had an opportunity to steal the Terminator question, and she couldn't do it. Well, end of Riley's turn. It was 10-6 Riley. Clarke spun 80s. She spun again for romantic comedies. She wasn't happy about it. Question 1. Elle Woods, what sorority was she in? A lot of Legally Blonde questions lately.
Yeah.
Riley stole this. So very surprising. Question 1, Riley stole this, went up 11-6. Clarke bounced right back. 4 Weddings and a Funeral, 11-8. No one could answer Mary's favorite M&Ms in the wedding planner, so it remained 11-8. Riley couldn't steal that, obviously. And then Clarke closed around with a correct answer. Jennifer Gardner played the older Jenna in 13 going on 30, 11-10 going into the final round. And again, that final, or that missing point from that Ex Machina question is haunting Clarke at this point, as it would be a tie game going into the final round had it not been for that. But they both got 4 points in their wheel rounds, except Riley was able to steal a point. So take away that steal, add that point to Clarke from the Ex Machina question, and it's a different match going into the final round.
Part about it as well is that you'll hear it here in the interview in a little bit. Clarke said it in the post-match interview. She says it when she's talking with me. She knew that question. She knew the brown M&M question. It just didn't. It just was not available for recall at the time when she needed it. She knew the answer to that question, and that's another point, or possibly 2 points if she would have recalled it quicker, that she could have had. So it's another unfortunate missed opportunity for her. But to have a category like romantic comedies, which she was not excited about at all, and to get half of them right, get 4 points, it's not terrible. It's not a terrible round. It's not like Mark Andreyko with Star Wars and got none of them. So some is better than none.
For Wolfe in the second round, she does not have great second round matches. The last 3 matches she's had, starting with Merle, the rematch with Makuga in the Ultimate Schmoedown, and then in her match against JTE, she's been 2 of 4 those past 3 times. So she's not performing great in the second round. The only time she's done well was her first match against Makuga when she answered 4 for 4. And then she was pretty good against Levine when she answered 3 of 4. Other than that, right now she's averaging about 62% in the second round. So to see her have a rough second round wasn't completely surprising, especially given the way she reacted to rom-coms. It's unfortunate for whatever reason, just round 2 is just killer for her. It's really unfortunate because when she plays when she's in the first round, she's about 71% correct, and then in the final round, she does pretty well in there too. But it's that second round that really just haunts her, and it's at this point it's just completely unexplainable to me. I feel bad about it. There's no words right now to explain what happens to her in the second round. It's so bizarre.
I think she loses a bit of confidence. I mean, she had that unfortunate circumstance in round 1 with Ex Machina, but then the wheel did not go her way in round 2. She has famously hated the wheel, and I think she lost a bit of edge mentally going into round 3 when she didn't get the round 2 that she wanted. So we've seen this before, as one question will kind of throw her off her game. So it's just a damn shame because she's a great player, but she does not get those lucky bounces. She does not get those lucky breaks that some players get all the time.
And one thing to note here, up until this point, she had been a perfect 6 for 6 in stealing. In this one, she misses her first steal. So she's now 6 of 7, still really, really good.
Frank, I blame you for pointing it out. That is why she got her first miss.
Yeah, I might have something to do with that. Sorry about that, Clarke.
Well, going into round 3, really, the match was, I think, decided with Clarke's 2-pointer. What company did Chuck Nolan work for in Castaway? And this is where the mental side of things comes into play. Had she slowed down a little bit and thought about it, collected her thoughts a little bit, she would have come to FedEx. And I think she knew FedEx, but I think she answered too quickly. I think she was excited because she knew, but she just acted too quick and she got it wrong. So again, when you think back to that 1-pointer in round 1, and then you have this moment, I think one dictates the other. One led to the other. It was kind of a domino effect when you add the wheel round to the mix. So Yodi still in the lead, 11-10 after what should have been a slam dunk question. She bounces right back with the artist as a 3-pointer. She goes up 13-11. Then it's Yodi's turn. He misses the Labercroft, however you say it. Still 13-11. Clarke. And then Sleeping Beauty. Sleeping Beauty has had such a huge presence in the Schmoedown. Yodi got his 3-pointer. What birthday does the Sleeping Beauty curse kick in? Yodi goes up 14-13. And then Clarke Wolfe, her 5-pointer, she could not nail down Normandale's regrettable incident in Hoosiers. He struck a player. Therefore, Yodi wins. So tough round 3 for Clarke. And you can't help but wonder where things would have been had the 2-pointer for Castaway gone her way and that 1-pointer for Ex Machina. Those are 3 points that would have put Mark Riley in a position to at least answer his 5-pointer, and he didn't have to. So one question, man, is all it takes.
It's almost as if her recall that had betrayed her in the last round for not being able to recall the answer, it betrayed her a different way in this round, because it was what you would call in psychology a flashbulb memory, where it just comes up real quick, and it's like, oh, it's UPS, and it's one of those things where once it leaves your mouth, you want it right back.
Right.
It's just
exactly.
Oh man, I've had those happen to me before, and I know what it feels like. So I can't imagine what it felt like once it was just out. She's like, "Oh, nope, that's wrong. I can't take it back." So unfortunately, it just happened again. It just wasn't her day, but it was still a very close match.
Frank, who would have gone if it was tied going into round 3 at 11-11? Who would have gone first?
Yeah, it'd have been Riley because he's the higher ranked. They always the first of the higher ranked break a tie if the score is tied.
So that Ex Machina question just affected the entire match from my perspective.
Yeah, it's a huge question because then she would have went first in the second round or had the option to go first, which she probably would have went first. Who knows what she spins, right?
Yeah.
So, and then who knows what, also again, it's the flip for Riley because then who knows what he gets. But it does affect the entire match from there on out. However, if you just forget all that and you get to the third round here, And if Clarke answers that castaway question correctly for 2 points, and she's up 12-11, and it automatically goes right back to Riley. We know he misses that first one, so then he has to answer his 3-pointer, and if he gets that right, he's up 14-12. Goes back to Wolfe. It'll go back to Wolfe. She answered that 3-pointer correctly, so she gets 3 points. And she's up 15-14, which then puts the pressure on Riley to answer that 5-pointer. And that's where he has not been the best, when the pressure has been put on his shoulders to deliver the goods. And unfortunately, Wolfe lost this match. But if you look at it the other way, fortunately, Riley won the match.
I would love to know what that 5-point question would have been.
Oh, man,
Just out of curiosity, like, I mean, then again, it could have been anything. It could have been Star Wars. So not necessarily a winnable scenario there either for Clarke. It just was not her day. It's just that simple.
It's had so many frustrating outcomes, though. She's always so close, and yet these matches just fall between her fingers. And God, it would have been sweet to have Clarke face Rocha in a title match to avenge her loss to Merle at one point. It would have been even sweeter to see her beat Rocha after the smack talk that those two had in a post interview recently. And no disrespect to Riley, he won deservedly. He's proving that he's one of the most consistent players that we've ever seen in the Schmoedown. But I think even he wanted to see Clarke move on and potentially beat Rocha. I think he would have said that as well. If he could lose to anyone, he would probably pick Clarke.
It's the most respectful Schmoedown match I think we've ever had. Pained me to see somebody lose. And then we had post-match interview.
How many times I gotta beat you, man? How many times do I have to beat you till you get it? See, what the lie they're telling you is 3rd time's the charm. Oh, no. I've already beaten this man 3 times. 2015, 2017 twice, or 2016 twice, and now in 2017, I will beat him again. It just gets old. Whipping you like a dead horse. Like, it just gets old, my man. How many more times can you come and face me?
Breathing down your neck, Rocha. Yeah. I can see you're scared. You're putting on your jacket here. You know what? Get the hell out of here. This is my interview, okay? You're talking to Emma Fife? Yeah. You're telling you are the classless... You are the most classless champion I've ever seen. You have no respect whatsoever. You sit there in the audience, you yell at people that aren't even, it's their first time. You know what this competition needs? It needs a frickin' hero. No. You are a villain. That's right. You are a piece of
No, wait.
Get out.
Say to me?
Get out. I am sick and tired of you. No, there is no a champion doesn't sit here and call people out. Yes, a champion doesn't sit there and brag and say they need all the belts. A champion will step up when needed, when called. They don't ride around on a pink felt horse claiming there's some apocalypse that need 4 horsemen for a movie trivia contest. Get out of here. Get out of here. This is my interview.
Listen to me.
It's my interview. Get out. Get out.
You're going to hear me right now.
All right. Get out. Get out! Get out! Get out, my God! Does anybody else? Oh, get the out! Do I have to curse now? Get out, you piece of God damn it! I mean, is anybody else tired of it? Is anybody else tired of it? Is anybody else tired of this? I mean, I am freaking sick of this stuff. Are you okay?
I'm fine.
What a
Mark Riley, champion of the people, the hero we all believe in. I'm certainly rooting for you, and I think it is time for us to have a hero, and the Mark Riley comeback story is long overdue.
That post-match interview was completely off the rails in the best way possible. I'm a huge fan of Rocha, but how could you not love Riley in that moment? I did not expect to see that from Riley like that. But I tell you this, though, when he gets when he was in his very serious mode early on in the Schmoedown, he didn't do particularly well. I liked when he got back to being more jovial and a little happy and not so serious about it, he started performing better. So I hope those are just for this part, because otherwise I think if he kind of brings that mindset into his match with Rocha, it could not turn out so well for him like it did the last time, or I guess the last 2 times. Rant and just him going off. I don't know if anybody was expecting that. I mean, how could you expect that? I mean, we all know that Rocha can get under people's skin. The Outlaw can get under people's skin. Yodi just had enough of it. And I also think it was probably stemming from the fact that he just finally wants to beat this guy. Enough's enough. Just the frustration, I think, was coming out that I should have beat you the last time because it was in his hands to beat him, and he didn't do it in the spectacular. So I think there's a lot of frustration on his own part not being able to seal the deal against him that last time, but also because he doesn't like the way Roka goes about being the champ, the outlaw being the champ. So I think it all coalesced, and we got one hell of a display from Riley, and that will certainly go down in the annals of history.
Oh wow. Brian, what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, first off, it was a bittersweet win for Riley. I mean, yeah, he's happy he won, but I don't think he was celebrating as much as he normally would because he had to beat Clarke to advance to face Roka. And I like that they hugged each other. I like the sportsmanship that they showed each other. But I brought up the pre-match for a reason because Roka came out, kind of took the spotlight a little bit. And I think Riley was just sick of it. He's sick of all the overexposure of the outlaw. And, you know, I've said before, don't overexpose your most popular characters. And we're seeing a lot of outlaw lately. And the fans may get tired of a certain character, but I'm sure people there get tired of seeing certain characters all the time, especially during their post interviews. And when somebody shows up wearing your Superman jacket, no less, like Roka was wearing Mark's jacket, Riley had enough. This competition needs a hero. You're a villain. You're a piece of crap. I'm paraphrasing. A champion doesn't ride around on a pink felt horse. Get out, Roka. Roka, pipes back, F you, Riley. So at first it started as kind of a forced yell, but then it turned into something that I think was rather authentic, as Riley has been frustrated with this guy for a while, stemming from Spectacular and that close match they had then. And of course, Roka had to tell Emma that he was sick of her attitude. So it's not you, it's everybody else, apparently.
Here's the main point that I took away from the post-match interview. Please, people in the comments section, other people that have told me that Mark Riley could never be a bad guy, wrong. You have been wrong. You are wrong now. You've always been wrong. Did you hear that promo that he cut on John Roka? Don't tell me that this guy can't be a bad guy. He was fantastic. That is the heel Riley that I've wanted to see for a long time. Now, he didn't turn heel. It wasn't a heel turn. He's not a bad guy because he's standing up to the outlaw. But that's is exactly what I wanted to see from Riley all along, because he's always the nice guy. He's always got the great hair, the smile, the sunglasses, the Superman shirt. It's all fun. Not anymore. It was a very serious Mark Riley. I loved it. I loved the turn.
Some of the best heels in history started out as the best baby faces or the best heroes for the longest time. That's what made them such great heels, because you know what they're capable of on the other side.
Aaron, when Riley was going off like that, I thought he was like, oh man, this is just some of the ammo Aaron needs to justify his theory or his point about Riley going. I swear to God, I thought about you as soon as this was going on.
To think that I deleted my Riley heel turn storyline from my Google Drive recently because I didn't think it was ever going to happen, but maybe I need to see if I can recover that. But yeah, I mean, it was just something I didn't see coming. Roka gets on, I mean, no offense to the guy, but he pretty much gets on everybody's nerves, especially when he cuts into an interview.
The outlaw gets on everybody's nerves.
I apologize.
Yeah.
The outlaw, not John Stephen Roka, but the outlaw gets on everybody's nerves. And it was about time that Clarke had cut him down a couple weeks ago, and now Riley cuts him down once again. So 2 strikes on the outlaw right now. Didn't have a good response either. It's kind of saying, he basically said back to Riley, your mom, is basically what he said back to him. So not much ammo for the outlaw to fire back with, pardon all the cheesy puns there.
The one thing I want to go back real quick was, in the beginning with Wolfe and Riley, she had said that Roka was the oldest person she knew. I thought that was hilarious.
It's pretty great.
I want to bring up something that I've been paranoid about for the longest time, and that's if Clarke loses her next singles match, which she's now done, is she going to take a step back from the Schmoedown as far as singles play goes? I talked to her probably 6 weeks ago, in an interview for another show, and she said that she would take a step back if she lost her next match. At the time, that was JTE. And Christian, I think, responded to my paranoia in this match at the very end when he said, we're not going to see the end of her. So I'm glad that he said that. I feel a bit more reassured. It doesn't sound like she's taking a step back from singles. So, Aaron, I'm guessing that you asked her this during your interview that you're about to play, correct?
We talk about more things than that. We talk about our match with Riley. We talk about Tom Dagnino, aka Bob Finstock. We talk a little bit about the Outlaw. We talk about merchandise and some fan interactions that she had during the Schmoedown panel and what the future holds for Clarke Wolfe. And she even gives you'll have a Schmoedown Rundown exclusive of something big that Clarke Wolfe is getting ready to do that no one else has heard about. So you'll get to hear it first. It's pretty awesome. So definitely check out this interview. What's going on, Movie Trivia Schmoedown fans? I am here with one of the most popular competitors in the Schmoedown. She is the host of Collider Nightmares. You love her. You know her. She is the classiest of the class. She is Clarke Wolfe. Clarke, thank you for joining us today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Of course, we wouldn't have it any other way. Coming off of the big match today, actually, with Mark Yodi Riley, your partner on the Wolves of Steel. And, I mean, let's just go ahead and get to it. It didn't quite go your way, but what a heck of a match that it was. Tell us a little bit about what happened and how you feel about it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, it was a fun one for sure. And, there are not a whole lot of people that I feel good about losing to. I am, despite my anxieties, I am a competitive person. But Riley is, not only is he a great human with a beautiful head of hair, but he is, he's the former champ. He's my partner in the team league. I mean, he's just a wealth of knowledge. And so if there's anyone that I had to lose to, I am certainly glad that it is him.
What two great competitors. We were talking off air before we started about how I was one of those people that said, can't they just both win? Like, can't both of these competitors just win? I don't want to see this. Like, for a long time, I talked to Christian. I was like, the Wolves of Steel, they're going to break up. It's going to happen. It's just a fact. And he's like, it's never going to happen. And we kept going back and forth on it. And then eventually, I think once you guys like beat Team 6 Degrees and you started getting on a roll, I was like, okay, maybe they do need to stick together and stick this out. So I'm glad that the team is sticking together. There are no plans to not be a team anymore, correct?
Oh no, certainly not. Riley and I are absolutely a team, and I feel like our team, what we did in the match today where we played each other was just almost like our team going for the singles belts and a preview of us trying to go for the team belts as well. But yeah, no, we're solid. And look, it's interesting because like when you think about our debut match against Team Heroes, which by the way, I mean, those two guys of knowledge, as we've seen, with the Inner Geekdom champion or tournament and all of that. But like, the question that we ultimately ended up losing on was a multiple part question, and now those have been taken out of the final round. So things are just a little different, so who knows how that match would go today with the rules that are in place. But I'm glad that Riley and I are finally getting our groove back.
I know that you had said, with your next loss, I believe a couple weeks ago, you said, I may take a little break. Is that something that's still on the table, or are you looking to get right back into action?
I definitely, if I had lost to JTE, I think I would have definitely taken a little break. But that's not how that went. And that was, I think, a good shot of confidence because, like I said during the decision, like I've said many times before, JTE, as big of a goofball as he is, he certainly knows a lot of things, and so he was a tough win. And so, like I said, even though I lost in this match against Riley today, I don't. That's not a bad. To me, that's like an honorable loss almost. Like if you're gonna lose to anyone, if it's Dan Murrell or Mark Riley, then those are, you know what I mean? Like those are pretty decent people to have to lose to. So I think I'm going to keep playing in the singles for sure. I have not figured out what my next singles match is. I know my buddy Mark Bernardin challenged me, which I think would be really fun to play. So who knows? Who knows what will be next? But I think I am going to keep playing in singles.
That would be an excellent matchup. Conspiracy theories were abound that if the Wolves of Steel were to break up, that it would be yourself and Mark Bernardin teaming up as a team, which I think would have been absolutely devastating. But
yeah, that would be fun. That would be a fun pairing too. I mean, of course, Riley is he's my partner, but if Riley ever got sick and couldn't play, I think Mark Bernardin would be a wonderful substitute. I love Mark Bernardin.
Don't read into that, fans. Just as pure speculation that may or may not happen, and let's not wish Riley ill. But but yeah, Mark Bernardin and Clarke, what a team! Holy cow! All right, let's talk a little bit more about what happened inside of the match. There, we had the question of the M&Ms, which was a little bit. I don't know. I don't really know how to describe that question. I think sometimes these questions pop up, and I myself look at them and say, "What does that even mean?" So I can't imagine like what you're thinking sitting there trying to process this question. And I know you said in the post-match interview, you're like, oh, it was right on the back of my mind. Tell me a little bit about what happened with that particular question.
Yeah, that was a tough one. I think, like I said in the interview, there was something kicking around in the back of my head about brown M&Ms, only because it's like that would be the thing that she liked. That's the cute, quirky thing that she likes. Is I don't like the ones that have colors. I just like the plain old brown ones. But I didn't quite trust my judgment. But I will say, I think overall my problem in this match was I was too relaxed, which is like not normal for me. You know, I take these things very seriously and I get too much anxiety. But I think it was something about playing Riley and knowing like, it's all good. Like whichever one of us gets this and wins, great. And so I don't think I was as laser focused as I normally am. And maybe that made a difference. Maybe it didn't. Yeah, that was a bummer of a question. We were talking off air how I don't know if any of us who are actually watching or playing would know the difference if that was the wrong answer or not. So who knows? But yeah, that sucks. And also, I kind of, when I played Dan Murrell, I spun romance, and that was a very bad category for me. And then when I played Riley, I spun romantic comedies. And, I love me some classic romantic comedies for sure. I don't want to paint it out, but it's like horror or nothing with me. But in terms of the Jennifer Lopez canon, I'm more of a fan of her dramatic works as opposed to her laugh out loud comedic work.
So let's talk about your post-match interview. For once, it wasn't interrupted. Yours wasn't interrupted by one John Rocha. In your matchup with JTE, you had an amazing back and forth with John Rocha, where you pretty much just completely shut the guy down. Now, is Rocha like they say he is at the studio? In character, is he intolerable? But outside of that, he's probably a decent guy. Is that fair to say?
I think that's fair to say. I don't think there's anybody in the league that, when they're being real people, are not completely lovely. But their personas on camera are completely a different story. And so, yeah, I am not a fan of the outlaw character. I think it's just a difference on how people play the game. And to me, it's not about, at the end of the day, your life is not going to change. You're just going to have a big shiny belt. I mean, it's like, you know what I mean? I think to me, I was always brought up, my dad was a professional football player in Canada and he played for the University of Georgia. And so sportsmanship was always like a big thing that my dad kind of taught me growing up, because I was not particularly athletic. And so I feel like I've learned how to lose gracefully, but also just really and truly and honestly enjoy the sport and enjoy the game. And so that's why I have no patience for the outlaw, because the outlaw is not a good sportsman and I don't appreciate it.
Classy from day one. I like it. That is actually a perfect segue, because I do want to talk about your dad here for a second. I want to rewind back to the Schmoedown LA Comic-Con panel. And you had described, or you had stated, that your father is a big fan of one Bob Finstock. Now you got to tell us a little bit about that, because you've had more run-ins with Finstock than I have. I've talked to the guy once, and it just blew my mind. So tell me a little bit about your interactions with Finstock and why your father thinks that Finstock is so great.
Okay, well, first things first. It's funny because my dad is tied to Bob Finstock in more ways than one. Because I grew up watching the movie Teen Wolf with
sure.
Michael J. Fox, and that was a movie that, because when I was little, loved Michael J. Fox. Anything Michael J. Fox was my jam. And so my dad first introduced me to Teen Wolf when I was super, super little. And Bobby Finstock is the coach in Teen Wolf. So that's where Bobby Finstock, the name, comes from.
Right.
Some of the audience didn't already know that. But yeah, my dad thought that Finstock was hilarious. He thought that his pre-show interview was really funny. And so did I. Here's the thing. First of all, I love Tom Dagnino. He is a mensch and a great dude, and I adore him. But before I understood, if we want to go back, we want to really get into the stuff here. When you go back to the infamous After Hours special, where most of Schmoeville met me for the first time, Finstock and I really, really got into it. And it was not cute for anyone. So, but the thing was, I did not understand who Bob Finstock was. I did not understand the magic and the mystique of Bobby Finstock. And so now that I do, I actually find him completely hilarious. And so does my dad. My dad likes any clever witticisms about my name and all of those kinds of things. So when Finstock said, "Clarke Wolfe, who's he?" my dad thought that was very funny.
It's so good. It's the
It
subtle
is
knock.
good.
You know, we talked about Roca, we've talked about Finstock. Is there somebody that you look at while, maybe if you're in the crowd or backstage and you watch a match, is there anybody that really entertains you, that just kind of captivates you as you're watching?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, I can tell you that I do not want to play William Bibiani or Sam Levine again, because those two guys, I think, are just wealths of movie knowledge. But actually, I think that about Drew McWeeny. I mean, a lot of guys who are new this year, I think, are going to be just insane. And so, so there's a lot of people who I watch their matches and I just sit and I'm like, oh my God, how they know those things. And that's more so than the characters. Like that's kind of the thing that entertains me the most, is just being like, I don't know how they got that question right. That's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. The Beast and the Godfather, as they are called, and of course the Inglorious One, Sam Levine, all very tip-top competitors in this league. And you yourself, Rookie of the Year, plenty of accolades coming your way. And I want to talk a little bit more about just kind of your individual playing style. Now, you've said for a long time that the wheel is not your friend. I will paraphrase here. I believe you said you effing hate that wheel. We'll keep it clean for the kids. But has your relationship with the wheel changed, or are you still in that I hate it, get it away from me kind of feel?
I definitely feel as though the new wheel has been better to me than the old wheel has. Although I'm so glad you bring up the wheel, because I want to address this. When I played JTE, I saw a lot of blowback, and I saw a lot of comments saying, "Oh, Clarke, just, if she hadn't gotten the wheel just hadn't fallen in her favor, she wouldn't have won." But here's the thing, guys. I just want to point this out, points-wise. Yes, I got spinner's choice, or I'm sorry, JTE got opponent's choice, and so I got to choose. But when you really look at it, JTE, if you total up the number of points that he got in his round, he got more than I did. He cleaned up during the horror category. I think I only got the opportunity to steal 1 point that whole time. So I just wanted to bring that up, because I see, the wheel is what made Clarke win, and it's like, what are you talking about? The wheel hates me. But the new wheel I like much better. And so, I'm obviously not a fan of how the romantic comedy category went today. But what can you do? So I like the wheel a little better.
Well, that's good. I remember in JT's promo before your match, he said the wheel is always Clarke's friend. I'm like, dude, it's never been her friend. It's actually something she's vehemently tried to erase from her memory, is the wheel. So I don't know where he was going with that, but you do make a great point about that round. He did have a decent round in a category that I think many thought were like, oh, this is it for him. But like you said in the past, JTE knows his stuff, and it was just another testament to that. A category that you think may be his death nail, there comes JTE and hanging right around. So
yeah, I mean, he's really good at this game. And when he focuses and when he really keys in, JTE is really good. So, yeah, it definitely, look, it was either going to be Sandra Bullock movies or horror thing. It told me that if I went Sandra Bullock, it might be more mainstream, right? It might be more like, The Proposal or Miss Congeniality or movies that people really, really know, and not the nerdy, weird, like Fire on the Amazon stuff. So with that being said, I went horror because I thought, you know what, I think I can get all of the round. But again, I didn't just steal really almost anything from him. So he played a great round that round.
now, going back to the wheel one more time, is there a category that you look at where you're just like, please, God, no, I don't want that category, please?
So many. Fortunately, they switch out the wheel a lot, which I'm sure you guys have noticed, which is great. But for me, it would be Star Wars. I would be a mess. I'm just a peripheral Star Wars fan, and so I grew up the way that these guys know Star Wars. I would be a mess. So Star Wars, Star Trek, those two would be a mess for me. And Westerns, I think if you guys have watched our first team match where we lost on a Western question, I got trouble there. And finally, the biggest one that I think would be a complete disaster for me is scores and soundtracks.
Ooh, yeah.
Honestly, it's just a bit of knowledge that I don't have a lot for. Now, if it was music and songs in movies, like iconic songs in movies, I think I could do much better. But when it comes to who composed this theme and all that, it's just I'm no good.
Right, like who composed the music for the film King Arthur? It's like, who knows? Who knows?
Yeah,
honestly.
And also, it's like I mean, this is a hole in my movie trivia world and my movie trivia upbringing, but I honestly don't know the difference very well anyway between like the Hans Zimmers and John Williams of the world. And so that's like a problem, that's a major thing. And so I definitely have holes in my knowledge where I wouldn't be able to keep up, which I hope I never see.
Well, I may have to cut some of that out because we don't want people taking advantage of the holes in your game.
I know. Don't listen to the rundown. Listen to all of the rundown except for that one part.
Just pretend like it never happened. We'll just play music over top. We'll play a score and a soundtrack over top of it.
Exactly.
I personally kind of look at I'm not a film trivia elitist. I'm not one of these people. It's like I could answer all these questions. I'm not like that. But I see categories like 80s and 90s, and you think to yourself, like right away, you kind of think, I grew up in the 80s and 90s. I could probably take those. And then you realize how many films came out between the 80s and 90s, and then I instantly get terrified.
Well, you'll notice that, you might have noticed that was the first category I spun in today's match was 80s. And I was like, nope, I'm not, because also Mark Riley is older than me. And I don't mean that in like a weird, like I'm knocking him way. I'm just mean that I was born in the late 80s, and so even I can only catch up so much. But if this is a part of someone's upbringing, Christian and I talk about the game a lot, and I want to win a belt. I would love to have a belt. I would love to pull it out in the end, but you run into a problem where your age, I think, really does maybe have something to do with how much just general knowledge that you have. Because if you weren't alive during the time of this major pop culture phenomenon or whatever it is, or if you miss this in your upbringing, that's something that you can go back and try and rectify. But also, it's kind of like these guys have 10 years of movie watching on me. And so I honestly don't know if I'll ever realistically be able to take a belt. I want to, but who knows?
You make another great point, because we had talked about this a few weeks ago, because Drew McWeeny had just had his match and he was talking about taking the category of 70s, and people said, why would you take 70s? That's crazy. And he said, well, I mean, I grew up around the 70s. I've seen all of these films many times. It's not just something that I go back, watch once because I hear it's a great movie. I've seen all these movies multiple times, so I have that knowledge. So what you say makes that's a huge difference, because if you're like Mark that has seen, I'm assuming he's seen Jaws a lot. I don't know. I've never heard him talk about it, but I assume he's seen Jaws a time or two. Of course, he's going to know a lot about Jaws as opposed to someone that grew up, I don't know, in the mid 90s or the early 90s that may have seen it once or twice. So it's a really great point that you raise.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's very, very interesting. But then again, I say that, and you know, there are competitors in the league that are around my age, maybe a little older, like Sam Levine, and he knows everything. So, you know, I don't want it to sound like I'm making an excuse, but I think just as a realistic player, that's sort of been something that I've thought of. Like, realistically, I wonder, you know, I think I can keep winning matches, absolutely. But when it comes to the actual belt, I just don't know. I just don't know.
It's so easy for a lot of people to say, oh, yeah, I mean, you just go in there, we'll answer some questions about Marvel, answer questions about DC, it'll be fine. And then you get in there and it's like, what is the color of Martin Scorsese's left shoe on the set of The Departed? It's like, wait a second. Like, I wasn't anticipating this. So it really is, pardon the pun here, like it really is a mixed bag when you go into the Schmoedown. You really never know what's going to happen. You could get everything and score 22 points. You could get next to nothing and score 3. So it's really an interesting dynamic, which is what is part of the reason I think it's so captivating to people. Is because no two matches are the same. It's not Clarke versus Riley is not the same as Jeff Snyder versus Makuga. They're not the same. They're completely different, with completely different questions and completely different sets of drama and things like that. Do you enjoy we'll call it the story around the league? Do you enjoy those intricate stories that Christian, the commissioner, tries to weave in there? Do you enjoy that part of it?
Yeah, I do, because that to me is the entertainment value. And I look, here's the thing. That's the only thing about the Schmoedown that is predestined, essentially. You know, when it comes to when you step out onto that stage, all bets are off. You know, Christian can't, like, look, let's be honest, and your audience probably is thinking this too. If Christian Harloff had his way, he doesn't want a Roca Riley match. You know what I'm saying? Because like the audience has seen that before. Like we know that if Christian had his way, he would have me in the ring with Roca. Thank God I am not in the ring with Roca, because I do not want to do that personally. But the point I'm making is I like the stories that sort of surround the game, because that part, you know, we have fun in terms of the entertainment value. But once it comes down to the game, all bets are off, and it's out of everyone's hands. No one can predetermine or predecide what's going to happen there, and that is scary and unpredictable. So I like the part that we get to have a little fun with.
I enjoy most of that as well. I enjoy the storytelling, and that's all it is. I think sometimes in some of the fans, God love them, get a little too wrapped up in it. Like they think that Roca really does want to like punch people in the face, and it's not really accurate. Well, that's true. He might. In the movie Trivia Schmoedown, he actually might want to punch somebody in the face, but it's not.
Roca, nobody knows with him.
It's not like John Roca's going in the parking lot and like slashing Scott Mance's tires. It's not like that, but it's very interesting to see how, just seeing you guys from Collider Video, like you and Riley on Nightmares, and then seeing you guys in the league and how you interact with different people and just the storylines it create. It, for me as a fan, it just adds a different element. It's kind of a different side of your personality, because we see you on Nightmares, we see you on Movie Talk, we've seen you on other things, and it's like, oh, well, there's Clarke. She's gonna, we're gonna talk about some movies and stuff, and that's cool. We're going to get to see what she likes, but then put it in the Movie Trivia Schmoedown space, and it's just different. I don't know how to describe it. It's like a different dynamic altogether. You get to see more of, it may not be like exactly your personality, it might be yourself turned up a little bit, but it's an interesting way to get to know people even better, I think.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying, and I agree with you, and I do think that that's true. Honestly, I think the Schmoedown is like the best look at most of our, well, for people like me, for people like Riley, like we're not playing characters necessarily. We're basically playing ourselves. And so I do think that you're seeing a more sincere version of us. And I think when we're on the talk shows or the panel shows, like, we're being ourselves, of course, but I do think that, like, we're prepared and we've studied and we've thought about what we're going to say and, you know, all of those things because, you know, we want to be prepared and professional. But when it comes to the Schmoedown, you are sort of, your back is against the wall, and so you're not playing a character. You are more authentic. I think even Roca, you know, to use the example, because I think he's probably, him and Viviani are probably two of the biggest, like, characters that the league has right now. But you can see, especially with Roca, when he is actually playing the game, there is a bit of humility there, and it is a bit of like, okay, I'm actually, and so that's like the real person, you know. So when your back's up against the wall and you just are trying to like think on the spot, I mean, that I think is probably a much more authentic version of who we actually are because we're not prepared. We can't be.
And how hard is it to go from like talking your promos and trying to hype your match, and then you sit down, there's people in the crowd, you're looking across from Christian and Mark who are generally asking the questions. What is that like? Like for people like me that have not done it and probably never will, what is that like? Like you talked about the pressure before, but what is it going from promo to match? Like what's the difference?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's very different. It's so different. I mean, look, I have a theater background. I work as an actress every now and again. That part, being in front of a crowd, being on a stage, that does not faze me. That doesn't make me nervous. However, the unpreparedness makes me nervous, and that's the part when you're just staring out there. Like for me, you know, when we're in our pre-match interviews and we're goofing around and we're having a good time, we know. We know what we're going to say and we've thought about it. We've brought in costumes, whatever. Like that part we've prepped, we know. But once you get out there and you're actually like sitting at that desk, you've made your entrance and you're sitting there and you don't know what's about to happen and you're just staring into the lights, basically with a camera on you, and it's completely out of your hands what happens. That's really scary. I think that's scary for anyone because anytime you go on, like when we do a live stream of a panel show, for instance, on Collider Video, we've been given the topics beforehand. We know what we're going to talk about. Right. In this case, it's just like point and shoot and go, and whatever gets thrown your way, gets thrown your way. And I have to tell you, like, my experience playing Dan Merle was probably the worst I've ever felt out in that space because I was just losing so badly. And you can't escape it. You can't get away, and that sucks. It is bad. It is a bad feeling, and you'll see it too. Like you'll watch some people who get out there, and if they start having a bad match, they'll give up, and you can see them kind of be like, you'll see them be like, screw this, and they just start goofing off, or they just start like answering questions, like trying to be funny, and they, or whatever.
Which part of it is the hardest? Is it trying to like hype the match? Is it the match itself? Is it the post-match trying to think of something to say? Like what is the toughest part and what's the easiest part?
Oh, it's definitely the hardest part is definitely the match itself. It's definitely the unknown. And I think the easiest part the easiest part is the post-match because it's all literally just happened. So and if you're anything like me, you're rerunning in your head over and over and over again. Where did I lose this point? Where did I lose that point? You know, for me, the only times that I get frustrated is if I actually knew something and I messed up. If I just flat out didn't know something, then it's like, what am I going to do? I didn't know it. I can't beat myself up over that. But if I knew it and I screwed up or it just didn't come to me, like the Guardians of the Galaxy question in the Makuga match, like that frustrates me to no end. And I think you can see that in the post interviews. But so that's the easiest part because it's the most honest part, really.
Yeah, you can't hide from those cameras. Like every kind of wince, every kind of smirk or frustration that you have, it's right there and it's captured. So you, like you said earlier, you literally cannot hide because it's being recorded.
Yep.
Let me ask you, this is kind of off the beaten path, but I kind of want to ask you this. Now, when you guys went to the LA Comic-Con panel, were people coming up to you, fans, and saying, "Oh my gosh, it's Clarke Wolfe, you're from the Movie Trivia Schmoedown"? And have you had like a weird interaction where you thought somebody was noticing you for something else and then they noticed you for the Schmoedown? Has that ever happened to you?
Yeah. Well, to answer your question, surprisingly, I at least think it's a bit surprising. When I go to conventions, not a lot of people approach me. Not a lot of people talk to me. And so sometimes I'm like, oh, okay, that's weird. But then other times it's like, people kind of like other people on the Collider team will say, oh yeah, all these people were talking about how much they love Nightmares. And I was like, why didn't they tell me that? I want to know these things. I don't get approached very often. However, I legitimately 3 weeks ago was picking up Mexican food, and I believe his name was what was his name? Jordan. I was stopped by somebody, or not stopped, but approached by somebody in the restaurant as I was standing there waiting to pick up my Mexican food. And he was like, I just wanted to tell you that I love the Schmoedown and I really want you to win. And I was like, oh, yay, that's so awesome.
It's the ultimate compliment.
Yes, it was very, very sweet. And so those things are really cool. And there have been a couple of times where I've been like, I was in a Chick-fil-A in Alabama, and somebody recognized me from the Schmoedown.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then I was at a Whole Foods in Destin, Florida, and somebody who was working there recognized me from the Schmoedown or Collider, and I was like, what? So I always love saying hi. If you're not going to be mean and physically attack me, then I feel good. Like, come say hello. But if you have questions about if you like me or not, then maybe don't come up to me, because then that's just not fun for anyone.
Please do not attack Clarke. We don't need Clarke getting injured. We don't need you getting beat up by Clarke. Please don't. Yeah. Please be respectful and be classy to the classy one herself. Have you approached anyone yet that has been wearing like a Wolves of Steel shirt, or you have your own merchandise? Have you seen that yet? Is that something?
So, well, I do have a little bit of a funny story about this. So my best friend is his name's Jason, and he and I have known each other since we were, in early high school. He's like a brother to me, and he lives out here in Los Angeles. He's a director. And so he and I were having lunch one day over the winter holidays. So we were in no hurry. And we had just had this big, like, hour-and-a-half long lunch. And we were talking, like, it was like a work lunch, but we were also catching up on life and, like, all that stuff. So he got up to go to the bathroom. And so I was, like, taking notes because we had just been talking about, like, creative stuff or whatever. And he came and sat back down. And I was just, like, writing in my notebook as he was sitting back down. He goes, oh, man here? And I was still kind of looking down. And I was like, no, I don't think so. And as I looked up, he had unbuttoned his overshirt and he was wearing a classy Clarke Wolfe t-shirt.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
I laughed so hard. I was like, where did you get this? And he said, Julie is his girlfriend. His girlfriend had bought him a classy Clarke Wolfe t-shirt for the holidays. And I was like, that is so funny. And then my friend Josh Kagan has a classy Clarke Wolfe t-shirt. And so those are my two friends that actually have the shirts. I don't even have one, but so those two have been kind of hilarious.
Did you ever think that there would come a time when you first started playing in the Schmoedown or just at Collider in general that you would have your own merchandise? Is that anything that ever crossed your mind?
No, not at all. And but I certainly, as an entertainment professional, kind of always hoped that one day, you do something that people like, and then they want to buy things that have it on it or whatever. Sure. But no, not when it came to the Schmoedown. Never. I never in a million years thought that would be a thing, and it's really cool. And so far, I think I've made $12 off of those t-shirts. So those $12 are being donated to Tales of the City Rescue, a pet rescue where I got my dog Rufus. So thank you. So if you buy Classy Clarke merchandise, the good news is you get a sweet thing, whether it's a coffee mug or a t-shirt or whatever, and you're helping rescue animals like my dog Rufus. So it's a win-win really for everyone.
There you go. Buy a Clarke Wolfe t-shirt, buy 5, buy a notebook, a coffee mug. They have everything on TeePublic. You can get a classy Clarke Wolfe. You can have a classy Clarke laptop case. You can have a phone case. Schmoedown madness, I tell you. As we wind this down, I like to tell, as every guest, I like to ask them that are so awesome to come onto the show and talk to fans, because that's all we are at the end of the day, are fans that Christian just lets talk on a podcast channel, which is awesome. But is there anything, any kind of message, anything you want to get to the Schmoedown fans, anything that you want to get out? Feel free. The floor is yours.
Oh, well, that's nice. Well, I think the thing that I would say and that I try to always say is just thank you. You know, I think that it's really easy to forget that at the end of the day, all of us share in common the fact that we love film and we love entertainment and pop culture. And that's the thing, whether you're watching the shows, making the shows, listening to the shows, on the shows, writing for the shows, whatever it is, like that's the thing that we all really do share, is that we all come from that nerdy place. Like even Cody Miller, who is a freaking gold medalist and Olympian, is a movie nerd. Like that's so cool. Whether it's, you know, and so I just think that so what I would like to say is thank you to everybody who's been really supportive and awesome and nice, because at the end of the day, it all just comes from the fact that I am a movie fan and I love this just as much as they do. And so the fact that I've gotten to play and gotten the platform that I have is all thanks to, thanks to Christian, but the response, you know, like that everybody has given it when it's positive is really awesome. And so, and I hope that I hope more people, you know, in our community sort of watch and they start their own trivia leagues. Or have you seen that there are people who are doing these review videos where they watch the reaction videos?
Yeah, the reaction videos are fantastic.
I wish I could remember the name of the YouTube channel right now, that they've been doing them every week, and they sit on their couch and they watch and they like talk. That is so cool.
I believe it's late to the party, I believe is their name.
Yeah, I think you're right. And they're so great. So anyway, the point is just thank you. That's all I have to say. It's just thank you.
And, you know, also before we go, we'd like to know what you're into. What do you got going on? Are there any big things going on? I hear a rumor that a certain genre director will be coming on a certain show very soon. I will let you talk about that and just tell us where you can be found and what's going on.
Well, first of all, thank you for using genre appropriately. I love it. See, thank you. You know what it means. It's just a little, you know, my pet peeve is when people say, you're saying genre wrong. No, I'm not. To your point, there is a rumor that that's going to happen. I can't really speak too much on that because it is out of my hands. I am not directly involved with scheduling or coordinating that. I hope I am present when it happens, but that's all I can really say. Nightmares is coming back. It is coming back soon. Mm-hmm. We have a date. The reason we have not announced the date is just there are reasons, so we're getting there. But it's going to be a monthly special. We're super excited about it. And it's not just going to be like this next one and that's it. For the foreseeable future, we will be doing monthly Nightmare specials. They're going to be more produced. The panel is still going to be there, but we're also going to have really fun guests and fun other little things. So I think it's going to be a great show. And so it is coming. So don't worry. And we will let you know. Trust me, we will. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention that I haven't really announced anywhere.
Exclusive.
So, yeah, I mean, it kind of is. I'm starting my own podcast. It's going to be called Sending the Wolf, which is a fun little Pulp Fiction reference.
I like it.
Thank you. And basically the premise is that I'm going to be sitting down with somebody, and the guest will pick a movie off of one of the AFI lists. So that can be the 100 greatest, that can be thrills, that can be laughs, that can be heroes and villains, it can be scores, it can be musicals, it can be any of those AFI lists that they've put out. So the guest gets to choose, we sit down and we talk about it. And then to close out the show, the guest gets to pick a movie that they would add to the list that they feel like has been omitted from the list. And then we'll talk about that a little more too. I am really excited about this. And in a lot of ways, it came out of the Schmoedown. First of all, because I need to practice and watch movies, so that's just like a good excuse for me to do it. But second of all, because like as much as I love being known as a horror fan, which I am, and that's my passion, and it's the nitty gritty that I love. I love all movies, and I've the Schmoedown has really kind of put me back in touch with and given me a platform, quite frankly, to show people that I have interests in film that expand beyond the genre and beyond horror and sci-fi and fantasy and all of those things. So I'm really, really excited about it and about the podcast. So it's called Sending the Wolf, and it will be coming in April. I have already booked some really fun guests, and they are some you will know from the Schmoedown, some of your favorites, and some you will know from other places like movies and television and things like that. But it's going to be a great list, a great group of people. And so if you want updates on that, go ahead and follow me on social media if you're not already, because I will certainly be posting about it frequently. And same with Nightmares, of course. Once everything is finalized and ready to go with Nightmares, you can find all of the information on that and Sending the Wolf at Clarke Wolfe. Clarke with an E, Wolf with an E.
Fantastic. Sounds great. Cannot wait to get some updates and listen to the podcast. That sounds like a great idea, getting all that deep movie knowledge. Not just a genre fan, she's a fan of all genres. That's what it all comes down to. It all comes full circle to the Schmoedown. Clarke, I want to thank you once again for taking the time here to chat with a fan and get some messages out there to the Schmoedown fans. I really, really appreciate your time.
I really appreciate your time. I appreciate you doing this every week and inviting me to be here. And I've loved talking to you. And, thank you, really. It's been such a pleasure. And I'm glad that you're enjoying the Schmoedown and that your listeners and viewers are enjoying it as well.
All right, guys, we're back, and we are talking not really team previews at this moment. We're talking about a special fatal four-way match between the Power Rangers. And of course, normally we would have our special preview music, but for this special occasion, we'll hit the special music. All right, let's talk about it. We got the new Power Rangers movie that came out this weekend. It is apparently quite good. I haven't seen it yet myself. So we're going to have 4 Power Rangers going at it. Ooh, this is a tough one to call because we have not seen anything from these guys except for doing some martial arts stuff on top of a train and punching Elizabeth Banks in the face. So Frank, what do you think of this match? Which Power Ranger are you going to take?
Well, I'm going to think outside the box here because we all know Christian likes to put on a show, a spectacle, and I think something crazy is going to happen.
Do you think that the Predator will be inserted as the 5th person and make it a fatal 5-way?
That would be awesome. Or how about maybe that whoever's in that Darth Vader suit that was around the office? Let me take the. Can I take the? Is there purple?
There's not a purple. Of all the colors, got one of 4 colors you could have picked. You picked a color that's not even a Power Ranger.
Wait, what are the 4 colors?
Well, Becky G is kind of like magenta.
Right? Is it okay? See.
Pink, yellow, blue, black, red.
Yeah, I'll take the pink since that was closest to my original answer.
Oh my gosh, played originally by Amy Jo Johnson.
That's right.
All right, thank you very much. Brian, what do you think? Which Power Ranger are you taking? Which one is going to go for a victory?
I have no idea what to expect, but I'm looking forward to RJ Kyler as I'm a big fan of Me and Earl and a Dying Girl. I've seen him do some press for this movie, and I think he'll be fun to watch in this kind of environment. So I'm taking RJ Kyler. I believe he's the Blue Ranger.
Since there is no Tommy for the Green Ranger that I know of, I haven't seen the film, so I don't know, I will take the Red Ranger, the leader, which I don't know if he is Jason in this movie. I haven't looked it up. I probably should. But I will take the Red Ranger, the leader of the group, the Leonardo of the team, if you will, to win the Power Rangers Schmoedown. Either way, should be pretty awesome. And don't forget to go to Christian's Twitter and retweet his pinned tweet and talk about how excited you are to see all the Power Rangers doing battle on the Movie Trivia Schmoedown. Should be pretty fun. All right, after that, let's jump into the singles match this week. It will be a big fan favorite for us for sure, and I'm sure a lot of you guys. Robert Butler III makes his singles debut as he goes up against one half of Team Top 10, former team champion, Mighty Matt Nost. I'll start this one off. I love me some RB3. Matt Nost is on a downturn. You know, top 10 coming on the team victory, but Nost is 0-2 in singles play, so he's got to get back on track. I really don't think this is the match to do it. I think RB3 will do enough to beat Matt Nost. Brian, what do you think?
This is a tough one since Nost has a significant advantage in terms of singles experience, while RB3 has only played in team matches. However, Robert basically carried Cobster's corpse on his back during those Wanger bouts, so maybe he's got more reps than I realized, but despite the fact that RB3 has always been generous to me, he's never punished me for his own mistakes or anything like that, I still have to take Matt Nost since he's coming off a big team win where he played rather well. He missed that Star Wars question, sure, but overall I think he got some confidence back. I think he's going to ride that momentum on top of his singles experience, and I think he's going to beat our friend RB3 in a very close match. And if RB3 happens to win, you can say this was a reverse jinx.
You know, it's interesting because Nost, for as well as he has played in the teams, through his 2 singles matches, pretty bad. I mean, really bad. He's barely answering 45% correct through 2 matches. That's like Finstock numbers. He's 0-3 in steals. He's a shade under 43% of all the points available to him. And through his 2 matches, he was averaging 10 points. So I know he went up against Jim McWeeny. I guess for anybody at this point, his man's a machine. He scares the crap out of me. He lost.
Actually, he's the Godfather.
Right. Played against Dewberry first time out. I thought he was going to win that one, but actually Dewberry's only win in singles. So we get to RB3, film student, been interning with the Schmoes for a while now. He sees a lot of the Schmoedowns go on, the teams and the singles, so he sees a lot of that stuff. I have to think, mixed with film school, they're learning about, I'm sure there's something where he's learning about the history of film and all their older movies, mixed with all the newer movies that he's watching on the Schmo side of things, and of course his personal favorites that he likes. I think this could be a much more tough matchup for Nost than maybe he realizes or any of us realize, even though we could say it would be a close match. But I think this will come down to the wire, and I will have to give Nost the edge here because even in the teams, RB3 hasn't been the greatest either in the team, even though he was a good teammate to Cobster in that last match they had, kind of carried him. Yeah. But in that first match, in that first team match, he wasn't that great. I think he was like 1 of 4 in his individual questions. So he can hit some rough patches. I think when it matters for RB3, I think he'll hit a rough patch that through no fault of his own because the kid's only like 12. He's not going to know the answer. So, and I think that in the end is going to bite him, even though he's going to do really well. I give the slight edge to Nost.
Frake and I keep copying each other on our picks. We're both 2-0 from last week.
And you were afraid I wasn't going to agree with you.
Do we need to make a prediction on what shirt from 1993 that Matt Nost will wear this week? Let's jump into the next preview, which is a fatal 5-way. Man, a lot of fatalities going on this week. A fatal 5-way Intergeekdom match for the right to face Robert Meyer Burnett, and the winner of that will face Hector Navarro. So essentially it's a number 1 contender match, I guess you could call it. It's going to be Rachel Cushing versus Jason Inman versus the iconic Hal Rudnick versus Michelle Boyd versus the awesome-tacular one, Jeremy Johns. Now, Frank, I'm going to start with you on this one. How do you see it going, and who is your winner?
Oh, first off, I cannot wait to see Hal Rudnick back in the Schmoedown. I just went back recently and watched his match against Sam Levine, and it's the best. I love his banter and just his personality altogether. But this is really Jason Inman's match to lose. The guy thought he was going to try and weasel his way in or slide his way into a 3-way match between Hector Navarro and Burnett. So he's got all this confidence. I mean, all the pressure's on him now to face these 4 other people to come away with the win. You know, with Rachel, very, very interesting. We know she's a big Game of Thrones fan, and I'm sure on other areas, which I'm sure she's just as good because she's in this match. Don't know much about her. I know she also does a Game of Thrones show for another channel. And then Jeremy Johns, I mean, we've seen him before in the very first Intergeekdom And in that match, he
I believe it was 4th place.
earned 13 points. He got 8 points in that first round, 5 in the second, and could not get out because everybody else got 6 points ahead of him. He had a short showing in the first Intergeekdom Championship. I mean, he was 13 of 18 in those 2 rounds, so that's 72% correct. Who knows if he can get past the second round into the third and fourth? It'll be very, very interesting to see. So, I mean, I think Jeremy Johns is he's a more known quantity going into this. So I guess that's Inman's main. And there's also Rachel, and then I don't want to discount Hal and Michelle Boyd, but because I don't really know what they can do. So it'll be interesting, I think. More interesting than I think people realize.
Well, I'm thrilled to see Michelle Boyd in this competition. That being said, there's not enough information on her to really know what to expect from her. Rachel Cushing, we've seen a little bit. I'm glad that she's getting more reps. I'm curious to see what the dynamic's going to be between Rudnick and Johns. Those guys are probably going to bounce off each other quite well to where, we're going to get a very entertaining match. But as Frank said, this is Jason Inman's match to lose. He's been playing well based on recent team play, and he's had the most reps as far as everybody in this group. So the other 4 just haven't had enough time under these Schmoedown lights when you think of the big picture. So I'm going Inman all day, but cannot wait to see Michelle Boyd. Big fan.
I see this going one way. Frank, you made the point about Game of Thrones and people having that knowledge. Unfortunately, Game of Thrones is a television show. We're not talking about television shows. We're talking about movies. So that, to me, eliminates a couple right off the top. Hal Rudnick, not buying it right now. I know I'm sure he sees a lot of geeky films and stuff like that. I'm just not buying it. I think it becomes a single horse race, and it's going to be Jason Inman winning. I think Jason Inman will win this going away. I think the only other person that I could see maybe upsetting him is Rachel. I don't think that Johns is going to be in there towards the end. I think it may come down to Rachel and Jason Inman.
Rachel's the wild card for sure.
Yeah, and of course, Michelle Boyd being the unknown, she's right there as well. Who knows? She win the whole damn thing. Who knows?
Dark horse.
Exactly. But the winner does get Robert Meyer Burnett, who then in turn, whoever wins that gets a shot at Hector Navarro. Yeah, so a collision course is ahead, if you will. That is going to do it for this episode of the Schmoedown Rundown. I want to thank Clarke Wolfe for joining me for an interview. Of course, follow her on Twitter at Clarke Wolfe, Clarke with an E, Wolf with an E. Brian Davids, where can you be found, sir?
You guys can follow me, Brian Davids, on Twitter at BDF331. Check out my TV film podcast at filmschlubspodcast.com. Our return episode is this weekend. And as you guys are likely seeing right now, if you're watching this on YouTube, our show has new artwork, and I want to thank a couple people for helping us attain that. And those two are Shane Bowman of HeisenbergChronicles.com, my partner on Film Schlubs, and Clint LaJeunesse at Floyd Pinkster. You guys were invaluable to this process, so thank you.
Frank, where can you be found, sir?
Oh, where can I be found? So many places. Let me count the ways. You can find me on Twitter at FrankieJ29. You can also catch the weekly recaps of the Schmoedown League teams and singles on schmoesnow.com. That usually comes out every Monday. I also did a reaction video to the Schmoes Top 10 match.
I watched it.
I had a lot of fun doing that. I got the idea to throw in stats that pop up along the way. People seem to like that a lot, so I appreciate those stats and all that stuff. That was a lot of fun. So maybe I'll do another one in the future, schedule permitting, if I have time. It was really fun. And then also, guys, obviously in the Movie Trivia Schmoedown Facebook page, I'm in there looking at all your posts and commenting where I like to put my opinion. So if you guys have any questions, stat-wise or otherwise, okay, sure. Shoot me a message. Thanks.
I thumbs up that video. I just want to put that out there.
You're the one?
So did I.
Well played. Well played. Earlier in the show, I had talked about how I am going to be taking a break from the show for 1 week. I'm going on vacation about 4 miles down the road. And, I can't just not do the show. We can't just be like, no Schmoedown Rundown this week. Well, a guy reached out to me, a friend of the show, someone that I talk to every week about the show because he uploads the show. So next week, you'll have Frank Janisch, Brian Davids, and Robert Butler III. at RB3 Schmoes will be here as a guest panelist next week talking about his match with Matt Nost and whatever the heck else comes up. So be supportive. Tweet at RB3. Tell him you're excited for him to be on the show. I'm excited. It's a shame that I can't be here with him, but WrestleMania beckons sometimes. So you sometimes have to answer the call. And of course, you can always follow me on Twitter at ATTitanium. No Twitter questions this week, but do follow the show on Twitter at SD Rundown. And of course, talk to us anytime on there. We'll be happy to respond to you. Until next Saturday, we'll see you.